"Excuse me, sir. Would you please follow me to my house?" Officer Miller crouched down, meeting the girl's gaze. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old, her backpack almost bigger than she was, but her eyes held a weight that defied her age. Something was terribly wrong. "What was that, sweetheart?" he asked, a knot forming in his stomach. I need you to see what's happening in there," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The young copper, accustomed to children's requests, was taken aback. Never had a plea been delivered with such heavy, unspoken words. "Has something happened to your mum?" he pressed, his voice gentle. The girl, who he now knew was named Jemima, took a deep breath, opened her mouth, and then closed it, battling an invisible fear. Finally, the secret spilled out. "Mom doesn't know, but he locks us inside. Sometimes we don't even get food." Miller's blood ran cold. The word "he" hung in the air, a phantom threat. Jemima didn't need to explain further. The terror in her voice was enough. "Who does this, Jemima?" he asked, trying to remain calm. She glanced away, hugging the backpack to her chest. "I can't say here. If he finds out, it'll be worse." The word sealed his decision. Grabbing his radio, he alerted the station that he would be out of contact for a few minutes, and followed her. As they walked, Jemima's quick footsteps seemed to lead him down a path to a hidden truth. She didn't seek his protection. She was a guide, revealing a forbidden secret. "Is your house far?" he asked. "2 streets away, but no one goes in there," she replied, her voice eerily flat. They stopped in front of a simple cottage with boarded-up windows and a peeling wooden door. There was no movement, no sound. Jemima's hands trembled as she pulled a key from her pocket. Before opening the door, she turned to him, her small face serious. "Do you promise you won't let him take us back?" A shiver ran down Miller's spine. "I promise," he said, the words coming from deep within his gut. The door creaked open, swallowing them into a heavy silence. The air was thick with the smell of damp. Miller followed Jemima down a narrow hallway, his chest tightening. The house was utterly still, as if frozen in time. The weak, flickering light from a bare bulb overhead cast dancing shadows, revealing more and more of the disturbing truth. "Do you live in the dark?" Miller asked softly. Jemima clutched her backpack and answered without looking at him. "It's how he wants it." The girl's tone sent a fresh wave of dread through the officer. He didn't ask who he was. He just kept walking, noting the makeshift chains and rusty padlocks on almost every door. This wasn't a home. It was a prison. "Why are the doors like this?" he asked, his voice strained. Jemima took a shaky breath. "Because no one can leave until he says so." Another sound, a faint whimper from behind one of the locked doors, made Miller's hand instinctively move to his pistol. Jemima whispered, "Don't be scared. It's just the house settling." But he knew better. He leaned in, putting his ear to the wood, and heard it clearly. A muffled sob. A quiet, broken cry. "Who's in there?" he demanded. The sobbing grew a little louder, as if the person on the other side had felt his presence. "It's Leo," Jemima whispered, squeezing his hand. Miller looked at her, his heart breaking. "Your brother is in there?" She nodded, tears now streaming down her face. "He locks him up whenever I go to school. I couldn't stand hearing him cry alone anymore. That's why I brought you here." Miller tried the old, rusty padlock. No use. "I need the key," he said. Jemima ran to a battered old cabinet, pulled out a dented tin, and from it, a bunch of rusty keys. "He leaves them here when he goes out. I was always too scared to open it." One by one, Miller tried the keys until a dry click rang out. He pushed the door open, the creak echoing like a scream. The room was small, with no ventilation. A thin, dirty mattress lay on the floor. A skinny boy, no older than 4, was huddled in the corner, his face wet with tears. The moment the door opened, he ran to Jemima and wrapped his arms around her neck. "Leo," she cried, hugging him tight. "I'm back. You don't have to be scared anymore." "How long have you been locked in here?" Miller asked the boy softly. "All day," Jemima answered for him. "Sometimes even at night. I hear him crying, but I can't open the door. If I do, he'll find out." Miller's heart ached with anger and sadness. "You shouldn't have to go through this," he murmured. "Now do you believe me?" Jemima asked, her eyes pleading. "I believe you, Jemima. I saw it with my own eyes," Miller replied, his voice firm. Just then, the front gate slammed shut. Jemima's eyes widened in terror. "He's back," she whispered. The sound of heavy footsteps on the path, a man's gruff curses, and then a key turning in the lock. Miller quickly ushered the children back into the dark room. "Stay here. Don't make a sound. I'll handle this," he said, before closing the door. He stood in the hallway, his hand on his weapon, ready for what was to come. The door swung open, and a burly man with a cigarette and the strong smell of stale beer stumbled in. "Roger." "Who's there?" he demanded, his eyes scanning the shadows. Miller stepped into the light. "Police. I'm here to verify a complaint." Roger laughed, a dry, bitter sound. "A complaint? You've got the wrong address, mate." "Are you Roger?" Miller asked. "Yeah. What's it to you?" "I want an explanation for the state of this house, the locked doors, the boarded-up windows," Miller said, nodding toward the hallway. "This isn't normal." Roger's face hardened. "Normal? Since when does the law get to tell a bloke how to live in his own house? I run the show here." "What about the kids?" Miller's question cut through the tense air. Roger's eyes narrowed. "Kids need discipline. You're too soft on them these days, not me." "Discipline isn't locking a child in a dark room," Miller retorted, his voice steel. Suddenly, a small, choked sob escaped from behind the closed door. Roger's head snapped around, his eyes fixed on the hallway. "What was that?" he snarled. "Nothing you need to worry about," Miller said, blocking his path. But a smug, knowing smile crept across Roger's face. "You shouldn't have come here, officer, and I'm going to find out what you're hiding from me." Just then, a key turned in the front door. "I'm home," a tired voice called out. Chloe appeared in the doorway, her work uniform wrinkled, her face etched with exhaustion. She froze, her gaze moving from Roger's menacing grin to the police officer in her hallway. "What's going on?" she asked, dropping her bag. "Nothing. This officer just barged in and started making accusations," Roger said smoothly. "He's saying he got a complaint." "I'm Sergeant Miller. Your daughter Jemima came to me for help," Miller said, addressing Chloe directly. "I found the inner doors locked and the windows covered. I need to check on the safety of your children." Chloe's face registered a mix of surprise and irritation. "My daughter said that? There must be a mistake. Roger is strict, yes, but he helps out. He looks after them." A small sob came from the hidden room. Chloe's head turned. "Who's in there?" she asked. "Leo," Miller replied. "I found him locked in. Thin. Crying. That's not discipline. That's abuse." Chloe's lips trembled as she turned on Roger. "Locked in? Why?" "For their safety," he lied smoothly. "This neighborhood is rough. The boy is always getting into things. I do it so he doesn't hurt himself." "With a padlock on the outside?" Miller challenged. "That's not safety. That's imprisonment." Chloe's exhaustion now turned to fierce loyalty. "Officer, you don't live our life. I work all night. Roger does what he can. Yes, he's harsh sometimes, but he's not a monster. Miller held her gaze. Severity doesn't explain daily tears, an empty bowl on a dirty floor, or a window boarded up so no one can see what's happening inside. Roger put a hand on Chloe's shoulder. Babe, you're tired. The kids are scared because he showed up uninvited. Jemima fantasizes, you know. She's been like that since her dad took off. The emotional blow worked. Chloe's face crumpled, the old pain of her ex-husband's absence overwhelming her. Officer, I appreciate your concern, but this is my family. I know what's happening here. Roger makes mistakes, but he's not a monster. Just then, a small voice whispered through a crack in the door. Mom, don't believe him. He locks me up too. He said if I spoke, you would leave us and we'd have nothing. Chloe put a hand to her forehead, trying to push the words from her mind. Jemima, that's enough. Don't talk about Roger like that. He feeds you. He takes you to school. You don't know how hard it is to keep this family together. He only gives us food when he wants, Jemima's voice replied. And Leo gets nothing. Miller stepped forward, his voice measured. Mrs. Chloe, I need to separate the adults from the children right now. I'm going to document what I've seen, take photos of the padlocks, and contact Child Protection Services. It's procedure. No! Roger exploded, but he stopped when he saw Miller's hand move toward his holster. Child protection? They'll just take my kids away, Chloe cried, her voice breaking. I work hard. I'm not a bad mother. I'm not saying you are, Miller replied. I'm saying there's a serious risk to your children, and I've seen it firsthand. Roger tried a final play, his voice low and manipulative. Babe, tell the officer you trust me. He'll leave. We can talk to the school principal tomorrow and prove everything is fine. I'll be talking to the principal myself, Miller countered, and I'll have photos to back up my report. If necessary, I'll ask for a protection order. Chloe clutched her bag, her knuckles white. You want to destroy our lives. I want to prevent 2 kids from spending another day locked up, Miller said simply. From the locked room, Leo whimpered, and Jemima's tearful voice whispered, Don't leave me alone with him. Please. Roger took a step toward the hallway. I'm going to talk to her. Miller blocked him. You're not going near that room. Chloe finally erupted. Enough. I don't know what to believe. I work all day. I trust what I'm told. Okay, fine. Check what you need to check. But no one is leaving this house today. Tomorrow, I'll go to the school myself. Miller didn't respond. He took photos of the padlocks, the boarded-up window, the empty bowl. He scribbled notes, documenting everything. Then, he turned to the closed door and spoke loudly so Jemima could hear. I will be back, and I will talk to whoever I need to. Chloe opened the front door, a gesture that was both an invitation and an order to leave. Roger's tense smile never faltered, but his eyes were filled with rage. He was losing control. As he stepped out, Miller put his radio to his mouth. Central, this is 127. I'm out. Request a channel for a preliminary report and contact for Child Protection Services. He paused, then added, and confirm the name of the municipal primary school's principal. I need to speak to her. A crackle of static. Received 127. Channel open. Principal's name on its way. Chloe closed her eyes, the weight of his words crashing down on her. From the room, Jemima's breath was a soft, clear sound through the wood. The very next morning, Miller was back at the police station. The suffocating house, Jemima's tears, and Leo's sobs, still haunting him. He typed up his report, detailing the padlocks, the boarded-up window, the empty room, and the children's physical condition. He attached the discreetly taken photos. He highlighted Jemima's plea. He locks me in when Mom's not here. If I tell, he'll hit us. He sent the report to Child Protection, but didn't stop there. He went straight to the school, the place where Jemima had first asked for help. The principal, a middle-aged woman with glasses perched on her nose, greeted him with a fake smile. "Sergeant Miller, how can I help you?" He placed the folder on her desk, open to the printed photos. "I'm investigating a case of child abuse. Your student, Jemima, came to me yesterday. I found her brother locked in a dark room. Clear signs of neglect." The principal barely glanced at the photos. "These things are delicate, Sergeant. We must be careful before accusing families." "Ma'am, these aren't accusations. I saw it. I documented it. It's all in the report." She folded her hands on the desk. "Roger can be rough, I know. But Chloe is a hard worker. I don't want to be unfair to her." "This isn't about being unfair. It's about protecting two children," Miller insisted, his voice low. The principal shifted uncomfortably. "I've had problems in the past when I got involved in family matters. It's complicated, Sergeant." Her cold dismissal of Jemima's suffering made Miller's hands curl into fists. "Complicated is leaving two children locked in their own home while you look the other way." She handed the photos back. "I'll make a note that you visited, but I will not get the school involved." "Then please make a note that you chose not to act," Miller said, his voice flat. "Because I will." He left without waiting for a response. He was in the school hallway when Jemima and Leo walked by. Jemima, seeing him, ran over. "Did you tell?" she asked quietly, her eyes anxious. Miller knelt down to her level. "I made my report, Jemima, but I need you to trust me." She looked around, making sure Roger wasn't nearby. "He already knows you came to the house. Last night, he told my mom that if anyone else suspects anything, he's going to take us far away." Miller's heart leaped. "Take you? Where?" "I don't know," she said, tears welling up. "He just said no one would ever find us." The rage and impotence boiled inside him. He knew the case was fragile without the school's support. Jemima squeezed his hand hard. "Don't let him take us, please." Miller took a deep breath, silently vowing he wouldn't fail. In the classroom, Jemima's teacher, Helena, noticed something was wrong. Jemima was quiet, withdrawn, always on alert. As Helena walked around the room collecting assignments, Jemima held her arm for a moment and, without making eye contact, slipped a folded note into her hand. "Read this later, please, when you're alone." Helena tucked the paper away. Later, during recess, she unfolded the note. Her heart raced as she read Jemima's desperate, simple sentences. "He locks us in the room. Leo stays alone all day. Sometimes we don't get food. Mom doesn't know. If I talk, he hits us. Please, help us." Helena put her hand to her mouth, her throat closing up. This wasn't a child's tantrum. It was a genuine cry for help. Helena knew the risk. The principal's stance was clear. Don't get involved. Roger had a reputation for violence, but Jemima's words burned in her mind. This was serious. At that moment, Jemima came back into the classroom. She saw the note in her teacher's hand and stopped. "You read it?" she whispered. Helena nodded, her eyes welling up. "I read it, and I'm going to help you." A look of relief washed over Jemima's face, quickly followed by fear. "Just don't tell him," she pleaded. "If he finds out, it'll be worse." Helena knelt down, taking the little girl's hands. "I promise I won't let anything happen to you, but we need to talk to people who can truly protect you." Helena found Miller that same afternoon. She handed him the crumpled note. "I couldn't pretend I didn't see it," she said, her voice trembling but her gaze firm. "The principal won't get involved, but I can't carry this alone." Miller placed the note in a sealed folder. This was the confirmation he needed. This was not a child's fantasy. It was a crime in progress. The next morning, he searched the police database for Roger. What he found made his stomach churn. Old records of assault, bar fights, and a withdrawn domestic violence report from a former girlfriend. The pattern was clear. Violence, intimidation, reoffending. He printed the documents and added them to the file. He had the evidence. That afternoon, he went to see Chloe as she left work. She looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes. "Sergeant, I told you, Roger is strict, but he's not a criminal." Miller interrupted, showing her the records. "Here are his criminal records. They aren't simple mistakes. It's a history of violence." Chloe's hands trembled as she took the papers. With each line, the color drained from her face. I didn't know," she whispered. "He said he'd had a difficult past, but that he had changed. I believed him." Miller held her gaze. "And while you were believing him, your kids were being locked up. I saw it. I heard it. Your daughter begged me for help. She wrote this note." He handed her Jemima's note. "She is begging to escape this hell." Chloe read the note, and tears began to stream down her face, but she still clung to denial. "It can't be like that. He pays the bills. He helps around the house. I couldn't do it alone." Her voice broke between guilt and fear. "If I accept this is true, my life falls apart." "It's not your life that's at risk," Miller said firmly. "It's the children's. You have to decide. Stay with a violent man or protect your kids." Chloe hugged the papers to her chest. "I don't know the man I live with," she whispered. It was a start. The seed of doubt had been planted. That night, Chloe returned home a different woman. She watched Roger with new eyes as he ate dinner, talking loudly and complaining. Jemima and Leo ate in silence, exchanging quick glances with their mother, trying to gauge if anything had changed. Chloe swallowed, and for the first time, she truly thought, "What if my daughter is right?" Roger noticed the shift in Chloe's gaze, the anxiety in Jemima's eyes, the quiet whispers between the children. He was not a man who trusted silence. He knew something was happening behind his back. After dinner, he went outside to smoke, making several quick phone calls in a low, harsh tone. Chloe watched from the window, her heart pounding. The mask had come off. Hours later, after the children had fallen asleep, Roger crept into Jemima's room. She woke with a start. "Get your things ready," he ordered in a low voice. "We're leaving." "Now?" she whispered. "Now," he repeated, grabbing her arm. "And don't say a word." Leo woke up, startled, and began to cry. Roger picked him up roughly. "Shut up, you little rat," he growled. Chloe ran into the room. "What are you doing?" she screamed. Roger glared at her. "He knows too much. If we stay, I'll end up in jail. I'm not letting these two ruin me." Chloe tried to grab his arm, but he shoved her against the wall. "If you get in my way, you'll regret it." Jemima, now clinging to her mother, pleaded, "Mom, don't let him take us." In shock, Chloe watched as Roger dragged the children out of the house. Desperate, she ran to the phone and dialed the number Miller had left her. "Sergeant, he's taking my kids," she sobbed. "Please, hurry." Miller calmed her down, assuring her he was on his way with backup. Meanwhile, Roger shoved Jemima and Leo into the car, throwing their backpacks in after them. "Stay quiet. One word and it'll be worse for you," he warned, starting the engine. Jemima, through her tears, watched her mother running into the street, waving for help. Roger slammed his foot on the accelerator, tires screeching as he sped off. The town's quiet streets were shattered by the sound of sirens. Roger's car, a dark red shadow with its headlights off, raced around corners. In the back seat, Jemima held her sobbing brother tightly. "Shut that kid up!" Roger screamed into the rearview mirror, his eyes burning with rage. Jemima took a deep breath, her own fear giving way to a new kind of bravery. "Don't cry, Leo," she whispered. "He knows where we are." Roger's face in the mirror contorted with furious suspicion. "What did you say?" he snarled, reaching back. But Jemima's words were a signal to someone else. She had to give Miller a chance. With trembling hands, she carefully opened her backpack and, with a pencil, quickly scribbled a note. "It's Jemima and Leo. We're in a red car. Help." She folded the paper, and when Roger took a sharp turn, she let the note slip out the window. "What are you doing back there?" he barked. "Nothing, just holding Leo," she replied, her voice steady. He looked at her with suspicion, but turned back to the road, sweat beading on his forehead. Further down the road, as they passed a petrol station, Jemima had another idea. She pulled a red ribbon from her hair, and, pretending to adjust her brother, she lowered the window just enough to drop the ribbon onto the pavement. It was a small thing, but it was something. Meanwhile, Miller and his team were closing in. "Central, we've got a report of a note found near Naranjo Street. The girl is asking for help. Confirmed, red car." A voice crackled over the radio. Miller pushed the accelerator, his heart leaping. The girl was trying to communicate. Roger, now seeing the flashing lights in his rearview mirror, cursed loudly, veering off the main road onto a dirt track. The car bounced violently, kicking up a cloud of dust. "The police know where we are," Jemima cried out triumphantly. He looked at her in the mirror, stunned by the determination in her eyes. "Shut up!" he screamed, reaching back. But a blinding light from the police patrol car appeared on the horizon. The sirens ripped through the night air. Miller was closing in. The dust still hung in the air when the patrol cars lost sight of the red vehicle. Miller slammed his fist on the steering wheel, frustrated. Roger knew these back roads like the back of his hand. They'd never catch him without a new lead. Then, the radio crackled again. "Central to 127. We found another note, tied to a red ribbon on the side of the road. Confirmed. It's Jemima's." Miller's heart surged. She was fighting back. She was leaving a trail. The relentless search went on for hours. Patrols scoured the dirt roads. A helicopter flew overhead. Finally, near dawn, a local resident called the police. They heard a car entering an abandoned shed near the old quarry. Miller didn't hesitate. He assembled his team, and they stormed the place. The shed was huge, with crumbling walls and broken windows. A suffocated sob from a dark corner broke the silence. "Jemima!" he called out. "Over here!" she replied, her voice trembling. He ran to the sound and found the two children huddled together on the ground, their eyes red from crying, but alive. Seeing him, Jemima launched herself into his arms. "I knew you would come," she sobbed. But the relief was short-lived. A hulking shadow rose behind them. Roger, his face contorted with rage, was holding an iron bar. "Get away from them!" he roared. "They're mine!" Miller immediately pulled Jemima behind him, his hand on his pistol. "It's over, Roger. You're surrounded. Let go of the bar and give up." "Never!" Roger screamed, raising the bar. "I'd rather die than let you take what's mine." The tension was unbearable. Other officers emerged, their weapons also drawn. Roger looked around like a cornered animal, but still seemed ready to attack. It was Jemima's trembling voice that broke the silence. "Please, don't hurt Leo or me." The plea hit Roger harder than any bullet. For a fleeting moment, his facade of control wavered. Miller seized the opportunity. He lunged forward, disarming Roger and pinning him against the wall. The other officers cuffed him and held him down on the concrete floor. "You're under arrest for abuse and kidnapping," Miller said, his chest heaving. As Roger continued to hurl insults, Miller knelt in front of Jemima and Leo. He set aside his uniform's rigidity and spoke to them as just a man. "You're safe now. Jemima cried tears of relief. Leo, still in shock, snuggled into his sister's lap. The sun's first light poured into the abandoned shed, marking the end of the chase. But not the end of the torment. The scars of what these children had lived through would cry out for a long time. News of Roger's capture spread fast. At the police station, he was still in cuffs, screaming and justifying his actions as necessary discipline. Miller kept a close eye on him. He had all the evidence, all the records. This case would not be buried. That same morning, Chloe was called in for questioning. She arrived, eyes red, looking like she hadn't slept. Seeing Jemima and Leo with a social worker, her face crumbled. The children looked at her in silence, not running to her, not embracing her. A wall had been built between them. "Mrs. Chloe," Miller said, "we need to understand your role in all of this. Your daughter wrote notes. She asked for help. And your son was found locked in a room. What did you know?" She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and finally let the tears flow. "I knew," she confessed in a whisper. "Not everything, but I knew." The silence in the room was crushing. Jemima looked down, holding her brother's hand tighter. "What exactly did you know?" Miller insisted. Chloe trembled, her voice cracking. "I knew he sometimes locked Leo in. He told me it was for safety, so I wouldn't worry when I was at work. I asked why he cried so much, and he said it was tantrums. I wanted to believe him." Miller's tone was firm but controlled. "You wanted to believe, or you were afraid to doubt?" Chloe's eyes filled with tears. "I was afraid," she said, her voice breaking. "Afraid of being alone with 2 kids, with no money. Afraid of losing the house, of not being able to feed them. I let it happen because I thought it was better than risking everything." The weight of her words was immense. Jemima, her voice trembling, finally spoke. "Mom, you knew he was hurting us, and you allowed it?" Chloe reached for her, but Jemima pulled away, hugging her brother. "I thought it wasn't that serious, that he just wanted to teach you to behave," Chloe cried. "I closed my eyes because I didn't want to see." Leo, not fully understanding, hid his face in his sister's shoulder. Miller finished his notes. "Understand that your inaction is also a crime. Children depend on protection. When you chose to be silent, you allowed them to suffer alone." Chloe covered her face with her hands, sobbing. "I know. This weight will crush me forever." Jemima watched her silently. Part of her wanted to run and hug her mother, but another part, the part that spent so many nights in fear, that saw her brother locked up, that had to write hidden notes, couldn't forgive so easily. Child protection would soon decide on the children's custody. Miller knew that from this moment on, Jemima and Leo's fate was no longer just in their mother's hands, and deep down, Chloe knew it too. The trial room was packed. Journalists, gawkers, and neighbors, who once pretended not to see anything, now sat in the back, eager to witness the outcome of the case that had shocked the town. In the center, 2 opposing figures. Roger, handcuffed, his face hardened by rage, and Chloe, beaten down, her gaze lost. The judge entered, and silence fell. The session began with the reading of the accusations. "Roger Hernandez, you are charged with abuse, unlawful imprisonment, and kidnapping of minors." The judge's voice boomed. "Chloe Lopez, you are charged with neglect and inaction regarding these events." Chloe bowed her head, unable to look at the public. Roger, on the other hand, held his chin up, as if he still believed he could get away with it. Miller, sitting near the prosecutor, watched in silence. In his mind, he heard Jemima's voice begging for help. He was here because of that plea. The prosecution presented the photos Miller had taken: the locked room, the covered window, the empty bowl. Each projected image drew gasps and indignant murmurs from the public. The defense lawyer tried to argue. The accused was only applying discipline. Children need limits. Sergeant Miller misinterpreted the situation. The judge interrupted firmly. Discipline is not locking children in dark rooms without food. Continue, prosecutor. It was the children's turn to speak. Jemima walked to the witness stand, her legs trembling, but her eyes firm. The judge leaned towards her. Can you tell us what happened in your house when your mom went to work? Jemima took a deep breath, wringing her hands in her lap. Roger locked me and Leo up. Sometimes both of us. Sometimes just him. She pointed to her brother, sitting with a social worker. He said it was to teach us to obey, but we just cried and were hungry. The entire room was filled with murmurs. Did he ever hit you? The prosecutor asked. The girl nodded, tears in her eyes. When I talked too much or tried to open the door, he would say children are no good for anything except being quiet. The judge thanked her and asked her to sit down. Then it was Leo's turn. The little boy was led to the chair by the social worker. The judge lowered his voice. Do you remember what happened when your sister went to school? Shyly, Leo squeezed the social worker's hand. He left me alone, in the room. I cried, but no one came. Only Jemima, when she came back. Chloe's heart broke, tears streaming uncontrollably down her face. The prosecutor concluded the children's statements with a respectful silence. Then it was Chloe's turn. Did you know what was happening? The judge asked. Her voice came out in a choked sob. I knew he was harsh, but I closed my eyes. I thought it was the price of having someone to help in the house. I was wrong. Roger, furious, slammed his cuffed hands on the table. Lies! Those kids are ungrateful. I gave them a roof and food. They owe me respect. Silence in the court, the judge ordered, hitting his gavel. The tension was suffocating. Miller watched, feeling that the truth was finally exposed for all to see. When the trial was suspended for deliberation, Jemima approached him, her eyes wet. Do you think they'll believe me? He knelt down to her level. They already believe you, Jemima. You were so brave. In the back of the room, Roger was led away, still yelling. Chloe remained motionless, the weight of her guilt crushing her. The children's fate was now in the hands of justice. The courtroom was completely silent when the judge returned to announce the decision. The tension was palpable. Jemima and Leo stayed together, huddled on the bench next to the social worker. Miller watched intently, knowing every word would change the children's lives. The judge adjusted his glasses, reviewed the papers, and began reading. After reviewing the testimonies, the evidence presented, and the official reports, this court decides: Roger Hernandez is found guilty of abuse, unlawful imprisonment, and kidnapping of minors. He is sentenced to 18 years in a maximum security prison. A murmur rippled through the room. Roger exploded. This is a farce. I was just raising those kids. They're ungrateful. The judge slammed his gavel. Silence! 2 guards dragged him from the room, still screaming. The judge continued. As for Mrs. Chloe Lopez, this court acknowledges maternal neglect in ignoring clear signs of abuse. Due to her inaction, her custody will be temporarily suspended until she can prove she can provide a safe environment for the children. Tears streamed down Chloe's face. She tried to speak, but no words came out. During this period, the judge continued, Jemima and Leo will remain under the protection of Child Protective Services and may be assigned to a foster family or appropriate institution until a new evaluation can be made. The impact was devastating. Jemima looked at her mother, hoping for a gesture, a defense, anything. But she only saw a woman broken by guilt, unable to rise. Leo, not fully understanding, cried softly. The judge closed the case. Sentence delivered. Justice served. The gavel hit one last time. Miller took a deep breath, torn between the relief of Roger's conviction and the pain of seeing the children without an immediate home. He approached them, kneeling down, and spoke in a firm but gentle voice. You're not alone. I'll be there every step of the way. No one will allow you to suffer again. Jemima looked at him, her eyes wet, still in disbelief. What about my mom? She whispered. Miller didn't answer right away. He put a hand on her shoulder and simply said, Now is the time to take care of you. Chloe, on the other side of the room, burst into uncontrollable sobs, repeating, Forgive me, forgive me. But Jemima turned away, holding her brother tight. Their future was still uncertain, but for the first time, the weight of the lies and silence had been lifted. The court slowly emptied, but that scene would be etched in everyone's memory. Two small children, survivors of a home that was never a refuge, waiting for life to finally give them a chance to start over. The trial was over. The headlines blared about Roger's prison sentence and Chloe's suspended custody. The future of Jemima and Leo seemed uncertain, but Child Protective Services were looking for alternatives. It was then that an unexpected revelation emerged. The name of the children's biological father was still in the records, even though he had been out of their lives for years. Julian. When he received the official notification, Julian could hardly believe it. He lived in another city, having moved away after painful decisions. His separation from Chloe had been marked by arguments and blame. He thought that by leaving, he would give her space to rebuild her life. He never imagined that, during that time, his children would grow up surrounded by fear. In his first visit to the foster home where Jemima and Leo were staying, Julian's heart ached. He found them huddled in chairs with suspicious expressions. He didn't know if they would accept or reject him. Jemima, Leo, it's me, your dad, he said, his voice cracking. I know I failed you, but I'm here now, and I'm not going to leave. Jemima's face crumpled with tears. For years, she had heard distorted stories about him, but there was something in his voice that sounded true. Leo, younger, just looked at his sister, as if asking for permission to believe. Slowly, Jemima approached him. Do you promise you won't let us get locked up again? Julian knelt down, crying openly. I promise with my life. The two of them launched themselves into his arms. The embrace that had been missing for so many years finally happened, full of tears, but also of a new hope. The following months were a time of rebuilding. Julian reorganized his life to gain permanent custody. He went to therapy with the children, learning to listen to Jemima's fears and Leo's silences. He took them to school. He cooked simple meals. He stayed up at night when the nightmares came. Miller followed their progress. One afternoon, he visited Julian's house. He found Jemima drawing with her brother. On the paper, there were no locked doors or covered windows. There was a family holding hands, smiling. Looks like they're doing better, the police officer said, moved. Jemima looked up and smiled for the first time in a long time. We finally have a home. Julian squeezed the sergeant's hand. Thank you for believing her when no one else did. Miller just nodded. He knew that the true victory wasn't in the cold sentence of the court, but in giving a life back to two children who had known fear too soon. In this new home, there were no padlocks, no screaming, no threats. There was space for laughter, for school, for games. There was space to be children. And for the first time, Jemima and Leo went to sleep without fear of tomorrow. We've reached the end of this captivating tale, And what a journey it's been. The story of Jemima's quiet bravery and Officer Miller's unwavering promise to protect her is a testament to the power of courage and the kindness of strangers. It reminds us that even in the darkest corners, a single flicker of hope can set things right. This story makes you think, doesn't it? Have you ever had to fight for what's right, even when it seemed like no one was on your side? What do you think about Chloe's final decision? Was it a moment of weakness or a final act of desperate love for her kids? And what about Julian, the father who returned? Do you believe people can truly change and fix their past mistakes? If this story moved you, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. We've got more powerful stories coming your way that you won't want to miss. What a powerful story. What do you all think? Leave your comments below.